I'm Irene, and I never thought my life would come to this. Standing in the ruins of a marriage that once felt like my whole world, watching as the silence between me and Mark turned into something darker, something I couldn't ignore. Our home, once filled with laughter and warmth, became a prison of unspoken pain, where every glance felt like a wound and every touch a distant memory. But when a chilling proposition shattered the quiet, it pushed me toward a choice I never imagined I'd make. A choice that would unravel everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and myself. What did I do that changed our lives forever, and how did it lead to a moment I can't take back? There's a certain weight to the air in the early morning, a heaviness that clings to my skin as I stand at the edge of our kitchen, watching the world outside our window wake up in muted grays. I'm Irene, 38 years old, and this is where I've found myself, rooted in a life that feels like it's slipping through my fingers, one quiet day at a time. My husband, Mark, is 40, and we've been tethered to each other for 12 years. Once that tether was a lifeline, a thread of warmth and laughter that bound us through late-night whispers and stolen moments. Now, it's just a frayed cord, barely holding together the pieces of what we used to be. Our home, a modest two-bedroom house in a sleepy suburban corner of Ohio, is a shell of shared spaces but separate lives. The walls are painted in soft beiges, chosen together in a time when we cared about such things, but now they just feel like a backdrop to our silence. Every morning I stand by this window, staring at the neighbor's dogwood tree shedding its last petals, while Mark sits at the kitchen counter behind me, nursing his coffee. The only sound between us is the rhythmic clink of his spoon against the ceramic mug, a tiny, grating reminder that we're in the same room, but miles apart. I don't turn to look at him anymore. I don't need to. I can picture the furrow in his brow, the way his eyes are fixed on some invisible point beyond the countertop, as if I'm not even here. Evenings are no different. I curl up on the couch with a book, the pages a blur under my unfocused gaze, while Mark slumps in the armchair across the room, his thumb scrolling endlessly on his phone. The glow of the screen lights up his face, but his eyes never lift to meet mine. There's no conversation, no shared glances, just the hum of the refrigerator in the background and the occasional sigh that escapes one of us, heavy with unspoken things. His touch, once a sanctuary, those hands that used to trace the curve of my shoulder or pull me close in the dark, has vanished. Now, if our paths cross in the hallway, there's only a fleeting glance, his eyes skimming over me like I'm a ghost, transparent and unremarkable. It stings in a way I can't put into words, this feeling of being unseen in the one place I should matter most. I've started to wonder who I am beneath all this silence. Am I still the woman who laughed too loud at bad movies, who danced barefoot in the kitchen with Mark on rainy Sundays? Or have I become just a shadow, a placeholder in a marriage that feels like a hollow echo of its past? There's a yearning in me, a quiet ache for something, anything, to shatter this monotony, to remind me that I'm still alive, still capable of feeling more than this dull, persistent emptiness sometimes others drift into. That Thursday evening, the air in our kitchen carried the faint, earthy scent of rain slipping through the cracked window above the sink. I stood there, elbow deep in soapy water, scrubbing at a stubborn pot, the repetitive motion almost meditative. The dim light from the overhead fixture cast long shadows across the counter, and outside, the world seemed to hush itself, waiting for the storm to break. Mark was at the dining table behind me, the soft clink of his beer bottle against the wood punctuating the silence that had become our default. It wasn't a comfortable quiet, not anymore. It was thick, oppressive, like a fog that refused to lift, pressing down on us both until breathing felt like a chore. I didn't look at him. I hadn't in a while. Not really. But I could feel his presence, the way I always could. His slouched frame, the weight of his unspoken thoughts filling the room. My hands moved mechanically, rinsing a plate under the lukewarm stream, When his voice cut through the stillness, it was flat, drained of any warmth, like he was reading from a script he didn't care to understand. "If you want to, do it. Just let me know so I can see." The dish in my hand slipped, splashing back into the sudsy water with a dull thud. My breath caught, a sharp hitch in my chest, and I froze, fingers still curled around the sponge. Slowly, I turned, the linoleum creaking under my bare feet, and stared at him. He didn't meet my gaze. His eyes were fixed on the beer bottle, one finger tracing the rim absent-mindedly. His shoulders slumped like he'd been carrying something too heavy for too long. I searched his face for anything, anger, hurt, even a flicker of jealousy. But there was nothing. Just exhaustion, etched into the lines around his eyes, the hollow set of his jaw. He looked like a man who'd given up on feeling altogether. My heart was pounding now, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, and I could barely get the words out. "What do you mean?" My voice sounded small, unsteady, like it belonged to someone else. He didn't flinch, didn't even look up. Just took another slow sip of his beer, the bottle tilting in his grip before he spoke again, his tone as lifeless as before. "I mean it. I'm serious. If that's what you want, go ahead. Just tell me when." I stood there, rooted to the spot, the damp sponge still clutched in my hand, water dripping onto the floor in soft, uneven plinks. My mind was a storm of its own, thoughts crashing into each other with no clear direction. Disbelief hit first. How could he say something like that so casually, like he was offering me the last slice of pizza? Then came a flicker of anger, hot and sharp, at how detached he sounded, how little he seemed to care. Didn't this matter to him? Didn't. The days following that chilling conversation in the kitchen felt like walking through a fog so thick I could barely see my own hands in front of me. I'm Irene, and I've been trying to make sense of Mark's words ever since they sliced through the silence of our home. They lingered in the air, heavy and unyielding, like a storm cloud that refused to break. I threw myself into my work as a freelance graphic designer, hunching over my laptop in the spare room, tweaking logos and layouts until my eyes burned. But no amount of distraction could drown out the echo of his voice. Calm, detached, telling me to go ahead, to do what I wanted, as long as he could witness it. In the quiet moments, when the house settled into its eerie stillness, those words gnawed at me, burrowing deeper into my thoughts. Was he testing me? Punishing me for the distance between us? Or had he truly stopped caring altogether? I avoided him as much as I could. If he was in the living room, I stayed in the bedroom. If he lingered in the kitchen, I found excuses to be anywhere else. Our home, once a place of shared warmth, had become a maze of unspoken boundaries, each of us navigating around the other like strangers sharing a roof. But avoidance couldn't erase the tension that simmered beneath the surface, a current of unease that prickled my skin every time I heard his footsteps on the stairs or the faint creak of his chair downstairs. I kept waiting for him to bring it up again, to explain himself, to show some flicker of emotion, anything. But he didn't. He just moved through our days with that same hollow look in his eyes, as if he'd already checked out of our life together. Then, one evening, everything shifted in a way I couldn't have anticipated. I was in our bedroom, folding laundry on the bed, the mundane task grounding me as I paired socks and smoothed out shirts. The faint hum of the television drifted up from the living room where Mark was, and I let myself get lost in the rhythm of folding, trying to push away the restless thoughts that had become my constant companions. That's when I heard the door creak open. I glanced up, and there he was, standing in the doorway, holding something small and black in his hand. My stomach twisted as I recognized it, a digital camera, the kind we'd used on vacations years ago, back when we still smiled for pictures together. He stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate, and placed it on the dresser with a soft thud that seemed to reverberate through the room. "I want to see the truth," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, but carrying a weight that pinned me in place. "The real you. Use this. Let me watch. And after, everything will change." My mouth went dry, the air sucked out of my lungs as if I'd been struck. My hands, still clutching a half-folded shirt, began to tremble, the fabric slipping through my fingers. I stared at the camera, that small, innocuous device now transformed into something menacing, like a loaded weapon pointed straight at the fragile remains of our marriage. My mind raced, a chaotic whirlwind of questions and fears. Was this some twisted game to him? Did he want evidence, something tangible to fuel whatever resentment he harbored? Or was this his way of severing the last thread between us, giving me permission to step over a line we could never uncross? I couldn't speak, couldn't find the words to challenge him or demand clarity. All I could do was nod, a numb, automatic gesture, as he turned and left the room without another word, the door clicking shut behind him. In the days that followed, I wrestled with the weight of his request. That camera sat on the dresser like a silent judge, watching me every time I walked past it. I tried to focus on my work, on the mundane tasks of life, watering the plants, paying bills, anything to keep my hands busy, but my thoughts kept circling back to it. What did he mean by, "everything will change"? Was it a promise or a threat? And why did a part of me, buried deep beneath the shock and the afternoon sun filters through the half-drawn blinds, casting slanted shadows across the hardwood floor as I stand by the front door, my hand lingering on the knob? My heart is a wild thing in my chest, beating too fast, too hard, as I wait for the inevitable. I've made the call, set the stage, and now there's no turning back. The faint hum of a car engine grows closer outside, then cuts off abruptly. Footsteps crunch on the gravel path, deliberate and unhurried, and I know it's him before I even see his face. Ethan, the man who's been a shadow in my thoughts for weeks, a name I've barely dared to whisper aloud until now. I open the door before he can knock, and there he is, standing on the porch with that familiar intensity etched into every line of his frame. His sharp jawline cuts a hard edge against the fading light, and those dark eyes, deep, unreadable, lock onto mine for a fleeting second before he steps inside. There's no warmth in his gaze, no softness, just a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface, mirroring the chaos inside me. "Hey," he mutters, his voice low, clipped, like he's already checked out of any pretense of small talk. I nod, a tight, jerky motion, and gesture for him to follow me. Words feel unnecessary, almost dangerous, as if speaking too much might shatter whatever fragile resolve I've scraped together. My bare feet pad against the floor as I lead him through the living room, past the couch where I've spent countless nights pretending to read, and toward the staircase. Each step feels heavier than the last, like I'm dragging the weight of every choice I've ever made behind me. The walls lining the stairs are a gallery of memories I can't escape. Family photos from brighter days, Mark and me grinning at some forgotten beach, arms slung around each other like we'd never let go. My younger self stares back at me, her smile wide and unguarded, and it feels like a cruel taunt. That woman doesn't exist anymore. Not really. With every step, those frozen moments mock me, reminding me of what I'm about to unravel, of the life I'm risking for something I can't even name. We reach the top of the stairs, and I push open the bedroom door, the faint creak of the hinges sounding louder than it should in the oppressive quiet. The room is dim, the curtains pulled tight against the world outside, and there, on the dresser, sits the camera. Its red light blinks steadily, a tiny, accusing eye that seems to see right through me. I've already set it up, angled it just so, following Mark's cold instructions from days ago. It's recording, capturing every second of this descent. And I can't shake the thought that he's downstairs right now, hunched over his laptop, watching the live feed with that same hollow expression I've come to dread. Does he feel anything at all? seeing this unfold? Or is this just another way for him to detach, to prove some unspoken point I don't understand? I point to the camera, a silent acknowledgement to Ethan, and he doesn't ask questions. He doesn't need to. There's an unspoken agreement between us, a mutual recognition that this isn't about connection or longing. It's something else entirely, something mechanical, almost clinical, a transaction of actions rather than emotions. Ethan moves to the edge of the bed, sitting down with a casual ease that contrasts sharply with the tension coiling in my shoulders. His hands rest on his knees, fingers splayed, and he stares at the floor for a moment, as if giving me space to reconsider. But I've already crossed that line in my mind 100 times over. I stay by the window, my back pressed against the cool glass, my arms crossed tight over my chest like a shield. The silence between us is a living thing, heavy and suffocating, thicker than the air before a storm. It presses down on me, making every breath feel like a struggle, and I can't help but notice the small details, the way his shoulders are squared, the faint tick of a muscle in his jaw, the way my own hands tremble I take a slow, deliberate step away from the window, the cool glass no longer a barrier between me and what's about to happen. My arms fall to my sides, heavy and unsteady, as I move toward the bed where Ethan waits. The air in the room feels charged, electric with a tension that isn't about desire but something darker, more calculated. I sit beside him, the mattress dipping slightly under my weight, and for a moment, we're just two figures in a still frame, caught in the unblinking gaze of that camera on the dresser. His hand brushes mine, a fleeting contact that's more accidental than intentional, his skin rough against my own. There's no spark, no warmth in the touch, just a mechanical acknowledgement that we're here, doing this, following through on a choice that feels less like mine with every passing second. We don't speak. Words would only complicate things, would force us to confront the reality of what we're doing. Instead, we move through the motions with a kind of detached precision, like actors in a scene we've rehearsed too many times. My fingers fumble with the edge of my shirt, lifting it over my head with a slowness that isn't seductive but methodical, as if I'm peeling away layers of myself I no longer recognize. The fabric falls to the floor with a soft thud, and I hear the faint rustle as Ethan sheds his own barriers, the sound unnervingly mundane in this charged space. Our movements are deliberate, almost clinical, as we close the distance between us, bodies aligning in a way that feels more like a transaction than a connection. The bed creaks beneath us, a sharp, grating sound that cuts through the silence, each groan of the springs echoing like a judgment in my ears. The sheets are cool against my skin, a stark contrast to the heat of the moment. But even that sensation feels distant, as if I'm experiencing it through a pane of glass. There's a faint hum from the camera, a constant reminder that every second is being captured, preserved for an audience of one who might be watching even now. I can almost picture Mark downstairs, his face illuminated by the cold glow of a screen, his expression unreadable as he takes in this betrayal I've orchestrated at his own request. Does it hurt him? Does it stir anything at all in that hollow space where his emotions used to live? Or is this just another piece of evidence in a case he's already closed on us? My mind drifts there, to him, even as my body moves through the expected motions with Ethan. I'm not fully here, not really. It's like I'm floating above myself, watching this unfold from a detached vantage point, a stranger in my own skin. There's no rush of passion, no surge of guilt or regret, just a numbing emptiness, a void where feeling should be. Every touch, every shift, feels like a step in a dance I never wanted to learn, each movement precise but devoid of meaning. The air grows heavier, thick with the scent of exertion and the unspoken weight of what we're doing. My senses are sharp, too sharp, picking up every detail. The way the light catches the edge of Ethan's shoulder, casting a shadow across the bed, the uneven rhythm of our breathing, out of sync and strained, the way the sheets bunch beneath us, crumpling with every calculated shift. Time stretches, each moment dragging on with agonizing slowness until it feels like we're trapped in some endless loop, a performance that's more about endurance than anything else. And through it all, my thoughts keep circling back to Mark, to the image of his face as he watches this unfold. I wonder if he sees me now, really sees me. Not as the ghost I've become in his eyes, but as something else, something raw, something defiant. Does it make him feel anything? Or is this just the final splinter in a bond we've both been breaking for years? There's a bitter warmth in that thought, a hollow satisfaction that this might be the thing that finally forces a reaction, even if it's not the one I want. It ends as abruptly as it began, anticlimactic in its coldness. There's no lingering, no aftermath of whispered words, or 2 days have passed since that moment in the bedroom, since the camera's unblinking eye captured everything, and the silence between Mark and me grew even heavier, if that's possible. I'm still Irene, still lost in this fog that's settled over my mind, clouding every thought, every movement. I've been avoiding him, and he's been avoiding me. Our home now a battlefield of unspoken words and averted glances. I move through the house like a phantom, sticking to the edges of rooms, slipping out of spaces the moment I hear his footsteps. I can't face him, not yet, not after what happened. I don't know if he's watched the footage, if he's seen the raw, unfiltered truth of what I did, but the uncertainty gnaws at me, a constant ache in my chest that I can't shake. This morning, I'm in the kitchen, going through the motions of normalcy, trying to anchor myself in the mundane. The coffee maker gurgles as it brews, the bitter aroma filling the air, a familiar comfort that does little to soothe the storm raging inside me. I stand by the counter, watching the dark liquid drip into the pot, my hands gripping the edge like it's the only thing keeping me upright. My laptop sits open nearby, emails piling up, client requests, invoices, meaningless chatter. But I can't bring myself to care. Every click of the mouse feels like a hollow gesture, a distraction that fails to pull me out of this spiral. My mind keeps drifting to him, to Mark, wondering what he's thinking, what he's feeling. Is there anger brewing beneath that stoic exterior? Pain? Or just the same emptiness that's been there for months, maybe years? I'm waiting for something, anything, a confrontation, a breakdown, a sign that what happened mattered to him at all. But the house remains silent, save for the occasional creak of a floorboard or the distant hum of the world outside. Then I hear it. A soft clink from the front door, the sound of the mail slot snapping shut. My heart stumbles, a sudden jolt of nerves I can't explain, and I abandon the coffee to shuffle toward the entryway. There, on the mat, lies a manila envelope, plain and unassuming, but it feels like a grenade waiting to detonate. My hands tremble as I bend down to pick it up, the paper rough against my fingertips, and I see my name scrawled across the front in Mark's familiar, precise handwriting. A cold dread settles in my stomach, heavy and unyielding, as I tear open the flap with unsteady fingers. Inside, I find a stack of documents, crisp and official, and my breath catches when I realize what they are: divorce papers, already signed at the bottom in his neat, deliberate script. Tucked between the pages is a small note, just a single sentence in black ink. "Thank you for reminding me why this needed to end." Those words hit me like a physical blow, a sharp, piercing ache that steals the air from my lungs. There's no venom in them, no rage or bitterness, just a quiet finality that cuts deeper than any shouted argument ever could. It's not anger I feel from him through this note, it's resignation, a calm acceptance that this, everything we've become, is over. I stumble back to the kitchen, the papers clutched in my hands, and collapse into a chair at the table. My eyes are glued to his signature, The loops and lines so familiar, a mark of the man I've shared my life with for over a decade. Memories flood in unbidden, vivid, and relentless. Our wedding day, the way his hand felt in mine as we stood under a canopy of white flowers, promising forever. The first night in our home, laughing as we painted the walls, splattered and carefree. The slow, painful unraveling of us. The silences that grew longer. The touches that faded until there was nothing left but echoes. I realize now that he must have watched the footage, seen every moment of my betrayal. And this is his response. Not a fight, not tears, but release. A door closing with a whisper instead of a slam. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.